You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franzen here. I am a host of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Steve Cernak is a longtime leader of the antitrust bar, from counseling clients as big as General Motors and as small as the local crematorium, from teaching antitrust at 3 law schools to numerous blog posts and articles, and from leading the ABA Antitrust Section to coaching his son's baseball teams for 16 years. Steve has been a leader in his communities for decades. Steve, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, tell me a little bit more about Bona Law, and you guys specialize in a few things and what you guys do.
Sure. We are an antitrust boutique, so a smaller law firm. We focus on antitrust law in all of its aspects. So we do litigation, we do merger review filings, we do counseling, and the like. We are spread out across the country. We were originally formed. Jared Bona is based in San Diego, so our main office is out west. But we have offices in Dallas and New York and Minneapolis and here in the Detroit area where I am. And we are also have varying levels of experience. Some of us have plenty of gray hair and have been around for decades doing this kind of work, and others are much younger than that. So we're a smaller law firm, but when you compare it to an antitrust section within a larger law firm, we're often bigger than that entire antitrust law section. So we can handle all sorts of antitrust problems as they come up.
So, as I mentioned in your intro, you've been doing this for a while, for decades. How did you get into the legal industry?
Get into the legal industry? Well, this was going all the way back to grade school. I was doing well in grade school, and my mother said, "Well, if you do well in grade school, if you do well in school at least, you can become a doctor or a lawyer." And I thought that was an instruction. And I didn't like being around sick people, so I thought, well, I guess I need to be a lawyer. So she went out and got me the only book about legal careers in my local public library, which happened to be about General Motors and challenging General Motors on product liability matters. And then, as it turned out, went to Michigan Law School and hired in as a summer student at GM after my first year, and ended up working there for 23 years. All of those as the antitrust lawyer, and then have since gone outside and have been out since 2012, including the last 3 years here at Bona Law.
Wow, that's quite the beginnings to your story. Was there anything about were you a good arguer? Was there anything about becoming a lawyer beyond just the fact that it seemed better than seemed like it was better than being a doctor, that was appealing to you?
In fact, as a matter of fact, even way back when, I knew that I did not want to go into court. And I did not want to be what I now know as a litigator. Didn't want to get into those kinds of arguments. So I am a counselor, and that's one of the reasons why I went in house. We did very little of. By the time I got to General Motors legal staff, the legal staff did very little of its own litigation. So I've managed litigation. I've managed litigators, but I've never actually done it myself. But the way I like to say it is, I'm the counselor at Bona Law, and I've got a bunch of real lawyers surrounding me. So if something bad does come up because I didn't give you the right advice, don't worry about it. We've got real lawyers to take care of it as well.
What is it about antitrust law that is kind of personally appealing to you?
Okay, so I knew I was going to be a lawyer. There was no such thing as a pre-law major at the University of Michigan where I went as an undergrad. So I decided to major in economics. um, because that was sort of not business school, but it was something related to business. It was similar to what my father did. I grew up reading the Wall Street Journal, really exciting childhood. Um, and I got to know it and to like it so much, I wanted to do more of that. And so I ended up getting a joint degree. Got both my JD and a master's in applied economics at Michigan after my undergrad. As it turns out, that's perfect training for an antitrust lawyer. I didn't realize it at the time. And when GM was interviewing me and they said, okay, great, we'd love to have you come work with us for the summer. Where would you like to work? Which part of the legal staff would you like to work on? And I said, wherever you pay me, I don't care. I just need to live at my parents' house to save money for the next year of tuition. And they said, well, you're doing law and economics. You probably should be working with the antitrust section part of the legal staff. Sure, that sounds good to me. And the rest is history.
Wow, awesome. So you, as I mentioned, you've taught antitrust law at 3 law schools. What schools are those? And um, yeah, what schools are those?
So I started out 2009 at the University of Michigan Law School, and I've taught there frequently, but not regularly ever since, including just last semester. Then in 2010, I also picked up a teaching at Cooley Law School, again here in the Detroit area, in their LLM program. And I've done that once a year until last year. I skipped 2021, but I'm going to pick that back up here in the summer. And then for about 2 years, I filled in at Wayne State when the usual antitrust professor was out on sabbatical. So I did that 3 semesters.
I kind of lumped those in your intro with blog posts and articles. Can you do you put your own kind of your own, for lack of a better word, spin? It's not spin, but your own, lump your own style into the way you teach, like you would in a blog post, or do you just buy a textbook and teach out of the book?
Well, I certainly use a textbook,
Yeah.
and because that is a question.
Hmm.
Could I do it, without a textbook? Yeah,
Hmm.
but frankly, I think that's a lot more difficult.
Sure.
But yes, I do teach from the perspective of a practicing lawyer, and I make that very clear to the students right up front. That we we're going to look at the practical aspects of antitrust law. We could spend a lot of time talking about the policy aspects, especially nowadays. But I think what's more important for any of the students, whether they're going to become antitrust lawyers or never really practice antitrust law, but just deal with businesses, as part of their practice, I think it is to know the practical aspects of antitrust law. I usually, here the last several years, I supplement the textbook. The textbook was written by somebody else,
Hmm.
but I supplement it with a book that I put together, which has a number of practical applications. That is, yeah, there are a few pages of explaining, bad horizontal agreements, and the law of bad horizontal agreements, and then there's some hypothetical emails and PowerPoints and things like that, that will give the students a chance to apply what they've learned. And all of those, all of that material, all of that hypothetical material is only semi-hypothetical. It's all based on matters that I have worked on in the past.
Are there any practical aspects that you've found that the students really focus on or really catches their attention, or that you think are important for them to focus on maybe above others?
Yeah, I think the sort of two aspects that all lawyers who deal with businesses should understand, are that there are certain agreements amongst competitors, so horizontal agreements, that are automatically illegal. That is, you do not get to argue to the court that, yeah, well, we fixed prices, but it was a reasonable price that we fixed. You do not get to make that argument. And the second point is, under antitrust law, agreement is not just a handshake or a document drafted by a lawyer and signed at the bottom, but can be communications between competitors that then it leads seems to lead to actions as if there were an agreement. And so those are the two areas that I emphasize to all of my students. Those are the two areas that we start the class with, so that they get that and make sure that they understand that those are ways that some of their potential clients will could actually go to jail and perhaps even stumble into jail if they're not careful. And so that's where you need to make sure that you provide them the proper advice.
How do you enjoy teaching law?
I do enjoy it. I like to pass on the learning that that I've been able to come up with for the last 33 years now. But also I learned something by interacting with the students. That is, you know, they ask questions. And sometimes they raise their hand and say, this may be a stupid question. And really, none of them are stupid questions. And some of them are really questions that either I've not thought of ever, or certainly have not thought of in a long time. And all of that makes me, need to sharpen my game. I need to prepare for each of these class sessions, and that makes me a better lawyer because of that. Because I need to keep up with, with the case law. I need to go back and look at all the old opinions to make sure that I've read them and read them the right way. And going back and revisiting or visiting the new material is something that helps me learn.
Yeah, I was just going to say, have you found yourself applying what you learn as a result of teaching to what you do as an attorney?
Yeah, I think part of it is just how I explain things to a client.
Hmm.
Um, it certainly being in house at General Motors, I did not have the opportunity or the requirement to write a bunch of law review articles or long memos or anything like that. So I got pretty good at boiling things down to its essence, because that's all the time I was allowed, in order to provide advice most of the time.
Do
Um,
you? Oh,
I
sorry. Go
think
ahead.
that's been helpful in teaching the students to at least start with that, and then we can dive deeper into the gory legal details. But to at least make sure that they understand it at a high level, I think that's been helpful.
As you look back on your career, are there some turning points where you thought like, okay, this is a time where I really moved forward, or I really like I took the next step? And what are some of those?
Well, I think I would go back to 2012, when I left General Motors. There had been, we'd survived bankruptcy, spent a lot of time working on that and in various aspects of that. Great, we're going to survive. I'm still going to have a job. Wonderful. But with the change in management, especially at the legal staff, it was clear that the the way the staff was organized and managed was going to change, and that I was going to have a lot less freedom to practice law the way that I wanted to practice it. So I could have, just stuck it out and, maybe, gritted my teeth and made a lot more money, frankly, if I'd stuck around for another 10 years and then retired. But I didn't want to do that. And so I left, and went outside, sort of a reverse commute. Instead of going in house, I went outside, and found that I could advise clients other than automotive clients. I could advise clients other than General Motors, even within the automotive industry. And then also picked up on, doing more writing, spending more time working with the ABA, Antitrust Law Section, and all of that was, something that I might not have had as much time for, if I had stayed in house. So it was scary. I didn't know that I still had kids in school, in college and high school, and didn't know that it was going to work out, but it has worked out very well.
Great. Is there a moment or a milestone that you're particularly proud of?
Oh, Yeah, I don't know, any particular moment. But what I do like is, and I've gotten this several times, both when I was in within General Motors and then since then, is when clients come to me and well, say thanks, thanks for the advice, thanks, that was really helpful, and wow, that was a lot quicker than I thought. You got to me a lot more quickly than I thought. Your advice was a lot more helpful than I thought. It was a lot more actionable than I thought. Um, I've tried to pride myself on providing actionable advice. I can talk till I'm blue in the face about the background on antitrust law. I can start with Standard Oil and go all the way up, to today. But what I try to do is boil all of that down to something that is useful to this particular individual in this particular context in some way that helps him or her, and then lets them get back to their real life, their business. And so when I get clients who recognize that and compliment me on that, that's when I know I'm doing my job.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, I mentioned that you coach your son's baseball team. Are you a baseball guy, or are you just a good dad?
No, 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 no. I grew up playing baseball. From little. When I was really little, I was the third batter and played shortstop and the star. And then as we got older, I was on more talented teams than that, and they only let me bat. I'm sorry, they only let me pitch and never let me bat. They invoked the designated hitter.
Mhm,
So played on through high school and on state championship teams,
mhm,
American Legion ball and the like. Um, had opportunities to play at small colleges and pass that up. The University of Michigan baseball coach saw me and correctly figured out that I did not throw the ball fast enough, and I'm not left-handed. I'm right-handed. There aren't very many crafty right-handers, so I didn't play in college, but I did get a chance as my two older boys, went through Little League, and then 9 years later we had a third boy, and he went through Little League. I did get a chance to manage all of them, so I needed to pay attention. Am I coaching, the travel team when they're 16-year-olds, or am I coaching the T-ball team? Because there were a few years when I was doing both at the same time,
Oh,
and
wow.
one of them you need to treat a little bit different.
Sure. So how challenging is coaching a baseball team of, anywhere from the ages of 7 to 16 compared to teaching law or doing the other things that you do with regard to law? All of that sounds pretty challenging to me.
Yeah, I've actually I don't have it here in front of me, but I did try to write an article about trying to tie those two together. Um, they're both challenging in their own ways, but you need to, again, try to figure out what the issue is, either with the 7-year-old boy or girl who can't hit the ball, or the 47-year-old guy or a gal who's going to go meet with his or her competitor. And you need to figure out what the issue is and provide them some advice that's helpful to them. For some of the 7-year-olds, you can't get their attention, or you can get their attention for about 5 seconds at a time, and you just need to get it in 5-second bites and understand that some of it's going to stick sometimes, but a lot of it won't. And there's some kids that you can sort of yell at, especially when they're 16-year-olds, and that'll get their attention. They'll pay attention. Not too many 7-year-olds are really going to be helped by me standing on third base, and especially I would see other coaches, stand on third base, yelling at the hitter in the batter's box. Okay, relax. Well, yelling at relax to somebody is probably not going to be helpful.
Mhm.
So you need to make sure that you're providing the right advice at the right time and in the right way to be helpful.
Sounds great. Hey, Steve, it's been great to talk to you today. Tell me how people can find out more about Bona Law.
BonaLawPC.com. We've got a brand new website that not only has our pictures, but also a lot about us, the lawyers, a lot of material that you can use to figure out whether you've got an antitrust issue even before coming to us. And it's also a nice way to get to our blog, which is the Antitrust Attorney, where Jared Bona and I and several others from our law firm write on a pretty regular basis. And you can subscribe there and get that sent to you as each blog post gets sent out, and then get a newsletter every month as well.
Okay, sounds fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.